Takes us play-by-play through the biggest games so far in the Scott Frost era.
Yes, Megan, the first half of the Huskers season did not go as planned. Riding the longest losing streak in the FBS, the Huskers look to turn the tides this afternoon as Nebraska hosted Minnesota at Memorial Stadium. Scott Frost still looking for that elusive first win as Huskers head coach to start the day. Nebraska back home for the first time since September 29th. First drive of the game, second down, Divino Zigbo gets the handoff and takes it to the outside, and he is off. Goes 40 yards for the score. It's his longest run of the season. Nebraska takes the early 7-0 lead. And next Minnesota drive, 3rd and 19 for the Gophers, and Huskers bringing the pressure. Ben Stille wraps up the quarterback for the sack. Minnesota forced to punt. Final 2 minutes of the first, the Huskers with the trick play. Adrian Martinez runs the Statue of Liberty to Maurice Washington, who takes it to the left side for a 17-yard gain. Next play, Zigbo again heads to the right, then finds a hole, then nothing except open field. 59 yards for a career-long touchdown run. Huskers up 14-zip after one. Second quarter, Huskers marching right down the field. Martinez finds J.D. Spielman up the middle for the 13-yard gain. Spielman becomes the fastest and youngest Nebraska receiver to 100 career receptions. Later in the drive, 1st and goal from the 3. Martinez keeps it himself and heads into the end zone for 6. Huskers up 21-0. 3:46 left in the first half. Martinez again showing off the wheels. Off the zone read, runs 53 yards down the sideline before being pushed out at the Minnesota 10. Huskers in scoring position. 2 plays later, Martinez zips it through the middle to Spielman. 4th game in a row with a touchdown reception for the speedy sophomore. Nebraska up 28-0. Gophers finally getting on the board. Final minute of the half, Zach Annexted finds Demetrius Douglas for the 13-yard touchdown. Minnesota connects on the 2-point conversion, and at the half, Nebraska leads 28-8. Second half, Minnesota starts with the ball, marches right down the field. Muhammad Ibrahim runs it in from 1 yard out. Gophers cut the deficit to 13. After Nebraska punts, Minnesota drives back down the field and is on the doorstep yet again. Seth Green runs 4 yards for the touchdown. 22 unanswered points for the Gophers, and it's a 7-point ball game. Huskers respond. Martinez fakes the run, steps up, and goes deep to Stanley Morgan Jr. The captain hauls it in for his 2nd touchdown reception of the season and the first since the Troy game. Nebraska goes for 2. Martinez lobs it up for Morgan Jr., who brings it in with one hand. Huskers leading 36-22. Fourth quarter, Baird Pickering attempting the field goal, and number 32 drills the 32-yarder to give Nebraska the 17-point lead. After Minnesota returned the kickoff to the Nebraska 13, Tanner Morgan firing to the end zone, but it's tipped and picked off by Dedrick Young. Nebraska starting to pull away. Martinez drops one to a wide-open Morgan Jr. The senior does the rest, going 67 yards for his 2nd touchdown of the afternoon. Huskers leading 46-22. Scott Frost giving his 4th-year receiver a big hug on the sidelines. Final 5 minutes, Martinez hands it off to Maurice Washington for the score to put the icing on the cake. And Nebraska and Minnesota both added scores late, but the Huskers come away with its first win of the season, defeating the Golden Gophers 53-28. The 53 points is the most the Huskers have scored against a Big Ten team since joining the conference, and it was the most of a conference game since 2008 when the Huskers scored 56 against Kansas State. Sports Director Adam Kruger has more from Memorial Stadium. Thanks, Adam. Nebraska had a dominant game on offense, totaling 659 yards. The Huskers have 4 games in a row with at least 475 yards of total offense and have 4 500-yard outings in 2018. Nebraska put up a whopping 383 yards on the ground and caused 1 turnover. Nebraska also improved with penalty issues, only receiving 6 calls for 43 yards in the win. Through the air, Adrian Martinez had a strong game, completing nearly 90% of his passes for 276 yards and 3 touchdowns. The 3 scores is the most in a game for him and is the 2nd time in his career he did not throw an interception. The Huskers dominated on the ground in its win against the Golden Gophers. Nebraska had 3 rushers over 100 yards for the first time since Taylor Martinez, Roy Halou Jr., and Rex Burkhead accomplished that feat in 2010 against Washington. Adrian Martinez, Divino Zigbo, and Maurice Washington accounted for 4 rushing touchdowns off of runs. Receiving-wise, the day belonged to Stanley Morgan Jr. and J.D. Spielman. Morgan Jr. had 10 receptions for 163 yards and 2 scores. The 10 receptions are a career high for Morgan Jr., who is now only 25 receptions away from becoming the Huskers' all-time receptions leader. Spielman tallied 8 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown. The sophomore has caught a touchdown in every game except 1 and is 1 touchdown shy of being in the top 10 for most touchdowns in a season in program history. And coming up later in sports, we'll have way more from the Huskers' victory against Minnesota.